From fighting air pollution in Colombo to protecting Golface Green and safeguarding Wilpattu, the Environmental Foundation Limited has taken some of Sri Lanka's most critical environmental battles to court. Today on Kaleidoscope, we speak with EFL's Head of Legal, Nimshi Hirimbura, to discuss how these cases are reshaping justice and conservation. From clean air to safeguarding Golface Green, EFL has always been pivotal in a lot of court battles. What makes litigations a powerful tool for your fight for the environment?
Actually, at EFL, we do not right away go into court. We use tools like Right to Information Act, and then we also send letters to authorities, and we try our best to resolve it beforehand. But the failure of which litigation becomes a very powerful tool because it actually forces accountability, and also it could lead to legal precedents that protect the environment for generations to come.
Looking back, what do you see as the foundation's biggest impact thus far?
Now environmental protection is being identified as something that can be brought before court and safeguarded. It began from EFL's first case in 1984 and it continues up to date. Just to give a brief understanding, our constitution protects several rights, like you have right to equality, you have freedom of movement, you have freedom of speech, but this right to a clean and a healthy environment is not guaranteed. It's not explicitly laid down in the constitution. So it's all these case law that helps us to go to court and protect it. So I believe it's the precedents that have been set by EFL that is the biggest impact.
So the vehicle emission test was a direct outcome of the air pollution case that was filed by EFL. But do you see gaps that still need legal or policy intervention?
This vehicle emission testing, it was actually one of the cases that was filed by EFL in the Supreme Court regarding air pollution in the Colombo area, which identified vehicle emissions as one of the biggest causes. And this case brought about this vehicle emission testing requirement, which is in fact a very positive first step because now all the vehicles should undergo it to obtain the annual license. However, the problem is actually not yet completely solved because people have found ways to bypass the system. So I believe like much stronger enforcement and also if possible random regular checks might be required to make it truly effective.
So the Golface case, for instance, was a really landmark case in preserving public spaces. How significant was this case in actually establishing legal precedent for protecting other urban communities in Sri Lanka?
Golface Green case is in fact a very significant case. In that case, court ruled that the Urban Development Authority had no authority to lease out the golface. So it reinforced the idea that these public spaces in fact belong to people and should not be and it must be actually left for public use. So this case can in fact be used as a legal precedent in so many other cases in order to protect our public spaces, to like use this and say that in this case it was ruled so it has to continue as such.
Do you think there are enough safeguards in place now to protect public spaces?
There are safeguards and also there's a way to go to court, but that does not mean that attempts to like basically acquire state land would stop. So without vigilance and active citizen engagement, public spaces will always be at a risk.
So another successful case was the mining circular case that ended with the state actually revoking the controversial circular. How do you balance the country's needs for mineral resources with the imperative of ensuring compliance with environmental standards?
Minerals are actually very important, but it should not be exploited recklessly. It has to be managed in a very sustainable manner so that something would be left for the future generations as well. That is why the safeguards such as obtaining a clearance from the Central Environmental Authority is mandatory and should not be removed from the mining issuing permit procedure.
So the Wilpattu illegal road case that was terminated with an undertaking by the state. Does this provide adequate protection for Wilpattu or does it leave our parks vulnerable to threats?
In that case, the state actually undertook that public through traffic across the park will not be permitted and also entry will be as per the law. And the law clearly states that to enter into a national park, you need a permit and that permit will also only be given to study and observe the plants and animals there. So it is in fact a very good positive outcome when it comes to stopping road misuse. But that does not mean that Wilpattu, like illegal activities inside Wilpattu will completely stop. In fact, even right now there is an ongoing litigation regarding several illegal constructions of houses inside the park. So yes, Wilpattu is still at a risk and it is for the state authorities to in fact protect its boundaries. and failure of which environmental organizations will, like EFL, will always step in.
Tell me, how does EFL decide which cases, which legal battles to pursue, and which you will then say, okay, I'll take the compromise?
EFL is a non-profit organization and we have quite limited resources, so we have to unfortunately pick our battles. We can't go to court on every issue. What I believe is one of the biggest strengths of EFL is that we not only have a legal division but we also have a science division. So it's not just the legal implications and the violations that we look into, we also look at the environmental impact, like how a particular act would affect the large environment or whether such harm would be irreversible. Likewise, there are several other considerations as well that we look into in deciding whether we should in fact go for a case or whether we'll have to unfortunately let go of it.
So, looking ahead, what are the challenges that you foresee and also the priorities for EFL when you continue to fight to preserve our cultural and natural heritage?
Biggest challenge is financial resources. As I said, we have to pick our battles and we'll have to let go of a lot of cases because of it. So in fact, even if the viewers, it will be greatly appreciated if anyone can contribute to our Justice for Nature Fund so that we can continue to do this good work. And when it comes to our priorities, we will always continue to work for justice for nature and continue to hold these authorities and people accountable for their actions. And it's not just actually by way of litigation. We conserve the environment through various other ways, like we do projects, we do advocacy. Just to give a small example, very recently we identified environmentally sensitive areas. Those are the areas that are outside of protected areas. Like it will help massively for the government in land use planning to see like which areas they should go ahead with and which areas that they should like be careful when going ahead with. Likewise, there are like so many other projects as well. So EFL will continue to work through all these mechanisms to protect and conserve the environment.
What systemic reforms do you believe are most critical in ensuring Sri Lanka's environment is protected for the next generation or two?
There are actually so many that I could think of, but on the top of my head, I believe that if we can bring in this right to a clean and healthy environment into our constitution, that will be a great step forward. And also, justice is very expensive. It's not easy for the general public to go and fight against their environmental rights. If we have some alternative dispute resolution mechanism similar to like a labor tribunal, like if we have something like a green court in Sri Lanka, I think it will be much easier for the public also to go and fight their own cases. So it will make litigation much more accessible. And also throughout my experience at EFL, what I realized was that we have strong laws, but when it comes to enforcement, it's a bit weak, and it's better if there's like much stronger network among these entities. We in fact did a project very recently where we brought in all these enforcement agencies relevant to wildlife trade into one place, and there was like major changes when it comes to investigations and enforcement. It became much more stronger. So I believe if we can bring these key agencies relevant to environmental protection into one table and stronger network is built, there would be like wonders.
More power to what you do. Thank you,
Thank you.
Nimshi.
Thank you.
Catch us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram and LinkedIn. Follow, like and subscribe to keep the stories coming your way.
You focus on your goals. We will take care of the risks. Silinko Life.